Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another wonderful episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan, with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, I am the silent IE in the middle.
Yeah. There you go. How was not being on the show last week?
It was a awesome day of... It was weird because you know how you have a schedule?
Yeah.
And you make that schedule just like at work, you make your schedule. Then you have your shows, you make your schedule. You have your, I got to get my Wednesday video out schedule.
Well,
but
games,
sometimes...
like you have your prep,
Yeah,
you have your whatever.
Yeah, but sometimes when you realize, oh wait, I've got nothing I have to do, no schedule at all. It just feels good sometimes to have, just no, you could do anything you want. You just sit back and you go, I could just leave the house now, or I could leave it in 50 minutes. It doesn't matter. There's no schedule here. So it was nice to get one of those. I mean, I love doing the show and it's awesome, but it's also cool just to be spontaneous sometimes too. So
Yeah.
just be able to do anything. But I heard you got to go out in the great outdoors with your fam and got to do some cool stuff. So
yeah, we friend had grabbed like a bunch of camping sites and had extra. They kind of wanted like the whole area for themselves. So they invited a bunch of other people, but he had one extra. He's like, yeah, why don't you come up? And so we went camping, which I haven't been in many years because of lots of stuff, baby, and what have you. But it was fun. And yeah, so camping with a toddler, kind of intense, but we got some cute photos of him playing in a creek, and we survived. So it was fun.
A very dad thing to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, didn't you and your parents go out and camp?
Yeah, not a ton. My mother didn't like camping that much, but I a couple times, and I was a Boy Scout and stuff, so we'd always go up in the woods and do things. Yeah. So.
And you live in a state that's perfect for finding cool campgrounds and
lots
cool
of beautiful
places.
Country.
Yeah.
And Yellowstone's really close. There's a lot of stuff where I live. So
well, your son's gonna have fun.
Yeah. So that was entertaining and fun. Sleeping in a tent with a little changing diapers in the forest. I was like, okay, we're doing this. All right.
We're doing it.
But it was a lot of fun. So thank you. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing. But we took a chance and we went out. So we decided to cancel the show so I could go out and fry eggs on my fire in the pan and stuff.
Well, on Saturday, I was able to go and get my motorcycle endorsement, so I passed my skills test.
Nice.
In one try, didn't fail, didn't not even one like minus off of anything, like put your foot down or go over a line or anything. So I was like, I don't know why you're worried, but if you know you have a test coming up, and even though you're practicing for it or you're thinking you're good for it, I know test always just has anxiety behind it. So.
Oh, I hate them.
So once it was done, it was just like, oh, this is so good. I can just do anything I want now. I can drive anywhere I want. I'm not worried about getting pulled over or anything. Yeah. And not you'd be on my learner's permit or something, So that was super cool.
Tests are awful. Now I'm all riled up because like. People are supposed to be good. I feel like the majority of people are supposed to be good at multiple choice tests. And they make multiple choice tests as like, well, this is an easier version of a regular test. I fail so bad at those. Like, I've never been good at multiple choice because I'm like, well, that one's right. And that one's right.
That one sounds kind of right.
But which one's more right? I don't like this. And I've been doing a lot of these quizzes and stuff for my new job as part of like learning. And it's all fun. It's not really meant to be like, you did bad, but it's meant to show you like, oh, you don't know what you're actually thinking. Like you didn't understand that like you thought you did or something.
Right.
And they're fun little team building things. And I do so bad at them. And I'm like, I swear I'm like a good employee. Like I'm doing good. But it's just like the way things are worded. I get so, I don't know. Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah. And you start to talk yourself out of something, you're just like, wait a minute, is that right? But then that sounds, I remember I was you're taking the written test for that. Oh, there goes my dog. The written test. They hated this test too. And it said something like, if you get a flat back tire on a motorcycle, what should you do? And one of them was, or what's going to happen? And one of them was like, well, you should just not ride the motorcycle. It'll be uncontrollable. And one of them was like, it's going to weave back and forth, left and right. And then one of them's going to be like, don't worry about it. You can fix it in a day or two. Something like a really dumb answer. But I started thinking, like, if you've got a flat tire on a motorcycle, don't ride the motorcycle. But the right answer was it's going to weave back and forth, so you have to compensate for it. But I'm thinking if I see a flat on my motorcycle, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to chance going somewhere on a flat motorcycle tire. So and I missed that. Yeah, I missed that. I was like, that just seems weird. So I get that. The whole tests are weird, and your brains think of things differently when questioned, and then you see these answers, and you kind of think, well, how would that work? Or that could be possible. That could be possible, so I don't know. I finally got past it. So it was good. Saturday was a good, but then after the test is over, you get it. You get your 80%, your 90%, whatever you needed. And you're just like, oh God, now I don't have to worry about this stupid thing anymore. I just felt so good. So that Saturday was really good once I got done with the test. And I was like, wow, now the whole day is just like sunshine and nothing. You can just do whatever you want. Rode my bike a couple of different times, went different places. Didn't care about if a police officer was behind me or any of that stuff, and it was good. So
cool. Well, Zris here says you should check for burglars because your dogs were barking. So
yes. No, well, as I was telling
Jordan,
or do
they keep them at bay?
As I was telling Jordan, I've been informed there is a ladies only pool party happening at my house for the rest of this afternoon, and I am not invited. So that is the ladies showing up for the pool party and what she called it, charcuterie board.
Yeah, there you go.
So there's some words to throw out to you guys.
That is a word that we make fun of a lot of in this house.
Yes.
And I wanted to get like a charcuterie board that is in the form of a shark with like little like candy sharks on it or something. So, but we should probably talk about D&D.
Fun enough. But D&D, because this is a D&D show, right? Not a motorcycle
Saturday morning D&D show, rather
camping
than just
show.
Our lives. But but anyway, thank you guys. We weren't here last week. It was really fun to take a day off every once in a while. So not much news at all. Really?
No, because we've kind of heard everything.
We've heard everything. Yeah. Witchlight is the first to come out, which will be in September. And the Beetle and Grimm's version of Witchhaven, no, not Strixhaven, Witchlight, getting confused. Witchlight it looks really cool. The Beetle and Grimm's one, it comes with like a little ticket that I thought was cool, like an entrance to the carnival. And they did a good job of this with the Barovia one. And I think Wizards of the Coast copied some of their ideas for the Curse of Strahd box set that they released later around Halloween, where it gave you postcards that was like, welcome to Barovia. And you could they were real postcards, so you could mail these out to your friends to be like, hey, do you want to play Curse of Strahd? And I'm a sucker for like props and stuff like that. Like one of the reasons I loved Invisible Sun so much is it came with like business cards from the various bars and local establishments within the world of Invisible Sun, and I thought that was really cool. And there's a whole prop making kit that you can buy that comes with fonts and all of these other things, so you can build your own stuff and print it out. So I love things like that. I thought that was really cool. I've watched a couple other things, but is there a fanaticism for the Feywild? Are you feeling this, or is this just kind of like, it's an adventure?
I think, this was the weird one for me, because like, are you going to buy this was the other question. I'm not sure I'm on board with this one, because this Feywild feels more Alice in Wonderland Feywild to me, and not as much Feywild as what me and you used to talk about, which was the summer, autumn, spring, and winter courts dueling against each other in their world of Fey, right? In my mind, that was like almost like a Game of Thrones style courts, the way I was thinking of it. And they were constantly maneuvering against each other, and there were certain groups that were aligned with this court and these courts, and they have their laws and their rules, and if you go across their borders and whatever. But this is more of like you go to the carnival, or you go to Cupcake Land, or you go to, you fall down a rabbit hole, and look, there's the Mad Hatter with the hat on the rabbit. It feels more whimsical to me, even if you're going to put a little bit of a horror spectrum to it, like a what was that old game that had Alice it was like something McPhee or McGee.
Oh yeah,
created a horror Alice.
It was called
game.
Alice, yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of like Alice in Wonderland, but it was done the horror way, or like a grim fairy tale, where you dive into the grim part of the fairy tale of it. So I could see this being that, and I guess I wasn't really looking for grim fairy tale campaign to run, or I wasn't really looking for an Alice in Wonderland campaign to run. So I don't think I'm as excited, and I don't know if the people that were talking about we need a Fae book were saying this is the book we want. Yeah, I think they wanted a Fae book, but they had a different idea of what a Fae book would be.
Yeah, I think a lot of dungeon masters like myself are they want Alice
McGee. There you go.
settings, I guess. And so really, I would love a Feywild book that was the Ravenloft book that we got, Van Richten's Guide, only for the Feywild. Like, here's a bunch of different little areas that you can connect if you want, kind of a thing. And here are some overarching rules for the Feywild. But and we'll see when the book comes out. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. I think this will be something that I could easily like plop down into stuff that I'm working on. But I don't know. I haven't been. I think I've been researching Strixhaven so much lately that I'm getting more excited for that book than I am for this one. But
yeah, I would say of the two, Strixhaven is more interesting to me.
American,
even if I wouldn't necessarily go full Harry Potter with it if I did Strixhaven, but I'm closer to thinking of cool ideas I could do with Magical College, Magical School, than I am with Magical Carnival, baking contests, in Witchlight, that kind, because like even the zones I didn't none of them captured me as, was it hither, yither, and yon didn't speak to me and just grab me like some other things have when they talk about them. So I think Witchlight was one that maybe it's a book we thought we wanted, but then when we got it, maybe it wasn't what we actually wanted.
Yeah,
it could be a case of that. I don't know.
I am curious because I've always really enjoyed the things that Chris Perkins has worked on more than when he doesn't work on them. So, and this is something that I think he wanted to do for a while, but then they were like, oh, we have to tie something in with Baldur's Gate, which is probably why Descent into Avernus felt so rushed to me. Because I think they were like, oh, we'll just put it in Baldur's Gate and then it'll tie into Baldur's Gate 3 that's coming out. And I was like, but I don't know. That's a really cool idea, but like I feel like they didn't hit the mark very well with that one. But
right.
Granted, there are some DMsGuild products that actually fix a lot of the problems with that, which I thought was interesting. So you can buy Descent into Avernus and then go buy these DMsGuild things to like, and it's like a whole new starting adventure that really like ties in a bunch of the people. But we'll see. We'll see.
That's kind of like the computer gaming modding companies sometimes, where a pretty good game is put out, but then the player modders get a hold of it and they add in the stuff that really fixes the annoying stuff, fixes the inconsistencies, and adds a couple of the things that you really wanted. And you're like, why didn't they add this in the first place? Because the modding community knows exactly what people want.
Vampire the Masquerade is a perfect example of that, where that game was terrible. But like when you apply all of the mods that the whole like Vampire the Masquerade community had like built up for it, it's a really cool game. And like they did all of the things that they wanted to see in a game, So
that's cool. So we'll see what the so you can think of DMsGuild like being the modders of our community, and there's plenty of independent people out there making the stuff that kind of I think could fix some of these things.
Or you can fix it yourself while you're playing it. I have lots of DMs do that. I did a video on Strixhaven with my friend Aetherhub from Aetherhub, or Sybin from Aetherhub, and he's been doing lots of interesting Magic the Gathering lore. It's interesting. We have a lot of fun with these conversations, and I really enjoy that format of just like talking to people, but they're like some of my worst performing videos. And so I'm wondering if it's the format or the subject matter, and it could maybe be both. But like Strixhaven, the more we talked about it, I left that conversation being like, man, I'm so excited for this thing. Like the idea of having like schools, or a school, and like an adventure for every year you're at school, at Magic School, and then on top of that, and I agree, we were just talking like I wouldn't run it as Harry Potter, but like I would definitely run it as like a magical school. Yeah. And then the villains are totally people that you can sympathize with, because there are these weird dragons that are kind of controlling the whole thing, and they're feeding you just enough information to make you feel powerful, but you'll never break their control. And the villains are like, we should break free, and it's like, oh, but you're violent, and like I don't know. And so I like villains that you can kind of identify with and be like, oh, and so I'm really curious about this, and the more that I'm learning about Strixhaven, I think it's a really interesting idea and fits well with a D&D setting, probably more than Magic the Gathering, which is why they chose it. Like, Sybin thought, well, that's a weird one to bring to D&D. Like, I don't know, because it was kind of a weird one for Magic, but I was like, oh no. The more we talked about it, I'm like, I can see exactly why.
Yeah. Ancient dragons controlling the population so they can't get too powerful. That sounds D&D to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the idea that could you pull it off? I mean, this is almost like a bardic inspiration section here now. But like when I was listening to you guys talk about it, I was getting more and more interested in the setting also, because I also like the idea of, could you sell the gilded jail or the gilded cell to your players without them realizing it in the beginning, but they slowly realize it at the end? Like, you give them no hint that the school is really a prison that's holding them back. Yeah. And could you maneuver and make the storyline subtle enough that they don't pick up on it in the beginning, but it's towards the end when they finally get to the revelation on their own that they're like, holy crap, we're in a prison right now. And yes, it's nice. And yes, it's cool. It's a cool college campus and blah, 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 blah. But we're slaves to this, or we're being held back to this, or our will is being subjugated in certain ways to make us not want to do these things. And now that we know it, we have to break free. You know, could you do it without them just guessing it right from the session number one, what you're trying to do? I think that would just be a really cool GM challenge to yourself to say, could I pull it off? Could I make this so good that they don't realize they're in a prison until halfway through?
Yeah, and think about, there's so many movies. Like I was just thinking about, it's some Tom Cruise movie. It's a sci-fi one, but like they're led to believe that it's like, no, the resistance is bad and all this other stuff, and you have to go do all of this, and they're very set on that. And then it's that turning point midway through the movie where you're like, oh my gosh, like, I'm the
They're
enemy.
Actually the good.
Like,
yeah, I'm the bad guy.
What? And then they have a choice to make, and that's what I want to do with Strixhaven. Like exactly what you said, where they're just like, wait a minute, they're trying to free us. We're literally fighting our saviors. Like, this is not good. And I know within the world of Strixhaven, the bad guys are bad, but like you could make them good. Like, I think that's cool. Like, overthrow these tyrannical dragons. Like, how cool is that?
But then add into the last part of that, the dragons are right. Like, throw in that, yes, when they get this powerful of a magic, it shatters the world. So this is why they've never tried to let anybody get it. So they're doing it for the right reason, but like the wrong way. Kind of thing. So they are a bad guy, but they're also kind of not a bad guy kind of thing. So I feel like that could be just a really cool way to try to explore and see if your players really pick up. I think it'd be tough because sometimes players pick up on things you thought you were going to have to give them 20 clues on, and they pick it up on the first clue. And then other times you give them all 20 clues and they're still clueless. They're like, what? I don't get it. We're stuck.
They're licking a tree and you're like,
why are you near the tree?
Oh my God. Shadzar asks window lickers. An interesting question. He says, do you think that Strixhaven was designed for both games at the same time? And I like for Magic and D&D, and I don't. Like, I mean, I could see them going that route, but I don't think the D&D side and the Magic the Gathering side talk to each other that much. But I bet Hasbro talks to them and say, listen, you have these properties and you have these properties. You guys are going to swap and share or whatever. So that's probably
that I could see happening. I bet they could be slightly influenced in like a peripheral way. Like, they could see some of the cool dragon artwork that's been coming out of Dungeons and Dragons or something over in that part, and they could be thinking, oh, you know what, that was a cool dragon image, I thought. So now when I'm sitting down at the let's create a card planes, I've got this image that this artwork I saw is really cool, and now I build something around. So I could see it only in that way, but not necessarily like, hey guys, let's build a card set of Dungeons and Dragons until this one that just came out, right? Until we just got in Forgotten Realms. But look how good they did with Forgotten Realms when they were able to say, all right, let's build a card set that is based on this. And I thought that card set was fantastic. I'm interested to see. In my mind, Strixhaven is really cool. When I think about how I'm going to bring it into Dungeons and Dragons, I kind of want to go buy some Strixhaven's cards and see if it's cool without bringing it into Dungeons and Dragons. Is it cool as a card set on its own?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a fun card set that is something about a magical school and ancient dragons and cool things? And I like the idea where he talked about there's pairings of colors represent the 5 houses, right?
Yeah.
And what I found a little disappointing is he said they were the same color pairings as Ravnica.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that was a miss. Why would you do, if you're going to do ones where this world is known for a green-black combo or a red-white combo or a whatever combo, right? Why wouldn't, in another world, wouldn't you switch that up? Why would you still have the same color combos and keep running with it?
I thought that was I wonder weird. If it's a balance thing with previous editions.
Maybe it is, yeah.
But I also wonder if there's a lot of distance and a lot of settings in between Ravnica and Strixhaven. So like this might just be the time that it actually like switched over again.
Oh, that could be too. Like, yeah, I could see that. So
because Theros, I bet there's lots of not green blacks in Theros. There might be all kinds of other stuff, but we didn't actually get that kind of mana feel from that setting as a D&D setting. So
right, yeah, and where these ones are split up so specifically, like the guilds of Ravnica or the different houses of the college or the school.
And even then, in the D&D setting, it's like. The Golgari are the black-green of Ravnica, and it's all about mushrooms and stuff like that. And Witherbloom is the Strixhaven black-green. And kind of similar, but it's like about, decay and nurturing new life and stuff like that. So although the same colors and kind of a same idea, like mushrooms and whatever, but I don't know, Ravnica, it was more like poisons and stuff, I think, as well, whereas this is more like decay. So they might have slightly different themes. Who knows?
Yeah. I do like how you could come up with themes, though. Like if we sat down and we said, okay, in our campaign world, we're going to add, the pairings, and we just say the pairings. We say, okay, we're going to do red, white, blue, black, green. What's the last one?
A white.
If there's 5, green, white. And then you just sit back and you go, okay, now what does that really mean? So like when you thought, green black was decay, but what is green white, or what is green blue, or what is green red, or what are the themes there that you could explore? I think there's a lot of creativity that can come out with what does blue red really look like? What does blue white really look like? What does blue black really look like?
The Magic the Gathering colors as an alignment system for D&D. There was a video out there, and I'll try to link it, and I can't look for it right now, but I'll try to link it. I watched it and sent it out to a bunch of people on our Discord, because I'm like, this is a really cool idea. Like, rather than just like, oh, I'm lawful good, like, you have a lot of subtleties with like how you want to play that. And you could make your own system that kind of reflects that for D&D. It doesn't. I don't advocate like, well, we need to take everything from Magic because Magic is so cool. But I like the idea of, black doesn't mean evil, but like, evil definitely means evil in like Dungeons and Dragons, And so there's not that like wiggle room. You can't. There's a reason that a lot of players are like, I don't want you guys to play chaotic evil, because we don't really understand how to play that because we don't talk about it. And so everyone I play with is either like neutral good, chaotic good, or like neutral, or I've never played an evil campaign,
sort of evil,
and nobody really wants to be lawful. So I don't know.
Adjacent, evil adjacent. I mean, I'll pick a pocket. I'll steal. I'll do a theft. That kind of evil.
But speaking of like Magic the Gathering settings, I've been researching a lot of D&D or a lot of RPG settings lately, and it got me thinking about universal systems, which are systems that you're supposed to be able to play anything with. Like if I want to play
genre,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if I want to play Red Dwarf Space Adventure, if I want to play Innistrad or Strixhaven or Lord of the Rings, like you could use those systems. And there's quite a few out there because I think a lot of nerds are like, oh, like I want to play this with D&D. I can't. I'm going to make a system that can. And so people have, and they've made all kinds of stuff. And heck, I'm one of them. I'm like working on my own system right now. Right. But how do you feel about those, I guess? And have you played any? Because I want to say that I've read a bunch of them. And the ones that come to mind for me are the Unisystem, which apparently is like a re-flavor of a cinematic universal role-playing game, I think is what it was called. And the Unisystem was used for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Ash versus the Evil Dead, things like that. Like if you wanted to play these movies in a role-playing game, you could use this Unisystem. And then I think the one that's really popular or really out there right now is the Cortex, because that one D&D Beyond picked up, and they're working on a version of Cortex that you could play any like setting. So if they get a property like they don't have Avatar, but like the other one, the Dragon Prince, they got the Dragon Prince, they're going to use that to apply Dragon Prince over the Cortex system so that you, Lucian, can play a Dragon Prince game.
Yeah. So. It's the elusive forbidden fruit of tabletop games, right? Because
this idea that it works for everything.
We always kind of start to move towards, well, what if I could have a game system so that when I change genres, I didn't have to learn new rules. The rules still work. And I mean, one that I'm surprised you didn't even mention is the Cypher system.
Oh, Cypher, yeah. You're right. I don't even know why I didn't think about that. Cypher,
the D20 system is supposed to be agnostic. I mean, we've seen a lot of games built off D20 system itself.
Yeah.
Modifius uses the 2D20 system, and then a lot of people use the Powered by Apocalypse, which seems to be a pretty generic system that can be applied to just about anything. So it seems like you're right. We always have these good role-playing games, but then there always comes a point after we played them long enough and we want to try to use them in a different genre, but then we find that it doesn't work as well because it was really good in its niche.
Yeah.
So then we start to explore the idea of, well, what if we built the system so that it could work with everything? And I don't know if those never do as good, but I'm always a sucker for buying them. I bought Gary Gygax's one that he had done. His was called Dangerous Journeys back in the day when he left D&D, and it was supposed to be Dangerous Journeys could be used in any genre. You could go to the middle of the earth, you could play modern day, you could play high fantasy, you could play sci-fi. He was building out these, this big universal system. Rifts was kind of like another one of those that was supposed to be like a universal system. Cypher for sure is the one I picked up on when I came back to more modern day stuff, because I thought, well, if I learn Cypher, I can already play Numenera, The Strange, all these things by Monty Cook. And the Cypher talks about how you can turn it into a James Bond game. You could play a Vietnam War game. You could, do a sci-fi space opera game.
Yeah.
And they talk about how to do all that stuff in the book. So they're out there, but they never seem to gain as much traction.
And I wonder
as
if it's
the niche ones.
And I wonder if it's because, and I'm gonna just point this out, like you have a giant book behind you that says Alien on it.
Yes.
And I think people walk by and they'll see like Cypher system, never heard of it, but they look over and they're like, oh, I love Alien. And so even Alien might be using the Cypher system, but they're just like, I don't know, like, and it's not, but like hypothetically, let's say it is, and they're just like, okay, yeah, I'll take this and then I'll play whatever. You kind of have to have a group of friends that are really invested in a show or something with you, a fandom, for you to be like, okay, guys, we're gonna do an X-Men game, but I'm gonna use the Cypher system to create this, or the
now that's the missing.
I
think you just hit on. You might have just broke the code right there. The thing I haven't seen in the past with all of these universal systems is they still, when they create the universal system, they still kind of create their own world or genre that represents that world. But it's their own, so it's still not new. It's still just made up, and it still doesn't have a fan base wrapped around it.
Yeah.
But if you took a universal system and then you go out and say, guess what? The showcase is the Pokemon universe.
Yeah.
And you plop that down, and then all of a sudden you bring in that built-in thing, and then you show them next year, well, we did Pokemon universe. This year, we're doing Castlevania from Netflix. And let us show you how that works in the system.
That's what Free League's doing. Like that.
Yeah.
And you're right. And that's,
I think that could crack the code.
Because Free League's doing that. They're like, here's Forbidden Lands. You know, It's a fantasy thing. It uses our, I forget the name of their system that they have. But it's a D6 dice pool system. And then after that, after they did Forbidden Lands, which was very fantasy, very, traditional fantasy. You're an elf, you're a dwarf.
Yep.
Then they did Vaesen, and they did Tales from the Loop. And so Vaesen is like your supernatural detectives from the 1920s, kind of a la Hellboy. Like you're out solving things. And then Tales from the Loop is straight up the 80s that never was. But it's all the same system.
Much.
So I don't know.
Love it so much.
I bought those.
I think that might be the future, because there's and I'm wondering if Wizards of the Coast is going to do something like that, because everybody plays D&D, and all they have to do, and Hasbro is the king of like, we've got this, like why isn't Hasbro going to Wizards of the Coast and saying, we want you to turn the 5th edition rules into a Transformers game.
Right.
And then we'll just sell it. It'll be Transformers, the RPG, brought by Wizards of the Coast, using the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons rule set, so that you understand that you have to build these things, you get feats, you roll 2d20 for advantage, like all the things that we associate with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but you're a Transformer.
Sign me up.
I don't know why they haven't been doing that, like, in all honesty. Like, but I don't know.
I think that's the thing that could crack it eventually. So like the one where you're talking about, if the Dragon Prince is popular enough, and then Netflix says, okay, that one was good, or they got one Netflix show and they said, now let's show you another one. Let's do Buffy. Let's do this other show that's different but popular, and it works. It's not just, it only sort of works. It's got to really work, right? It can't be a system that doesn't actually work well for multiple genres. So they have to build a system, one, that does work for multiple genres. The rules are interchangeable, and then grab one or two big IPs, and then they can have all the other custom IPs they want and people. And I think that could be something that could give 5e a run for its money. I mean, Pathfinder's trying, right? They're trying with a fantasy and a sci-fi at the same time. Yeah. The rules are pretty similar at this point. They're consolidating them so they are the same as they move forward. And they're the one group that's really trying to push D&D hard, but still they haven't quite done it, right? They got a couple punches in, I feel like, but they haven't quite knocked, D&D off the king of the hill yet. Even Bonnie Cook, he's put out some great creative games, maybe landed a few shots on the chin of Wizards of the Coast, but still has not been able to knock them out. So it'd be interesting to see what that game is eventually going to be, and if it will be, like you said, a universal system, or again, will it be another niche system that comes up and it's just so good at the niche that it's in that it takes the reins of, King of the Hill again.
Well, and there's also play style, because if you, I'm going to, like, Cypher, for an example, like, if you like a D&D 5e setting or system, because that's what you're used to, and then I'm like, hey, if we use this Monster of the Week system, or Powered by the Apocalypse or Cypher system, we could play Event Horizon. And you're like, oh, that sounds cool. All of a sudden, I don't have a grid, and I don't have a mini, and I'm not running around. And you're like, oh, well, this isn't the type of role-playing I wanted. So that's another thing I wanted to talk about universal systems. Like, I think they're very cool, but at the same time, just
their drawbacks.
Like, if you're running a Buffy the Vampire Slayer 5e game, that's going to be very different from a Buffy the Vampire Slayer Powered by the Apocalypse game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to want to play one of those, because one of them I'm like, I don't know, that just seems weird. But like, I would not want to play a Powered by the Apocalypse superhero game, if that makes sense. But I would love to play a tactical combat 4th or 5th edition D&D superhero game where I could look and see my powers and things like that. kind of coming like full circle again, do you know what system that Magpie's using for Avatar? Magpie Games for Avatar: The Last Airbender.
They have their system that they've used before has been Powered by the Apocalypse. Yep. I don't know if they're using the same one, but
they are using Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah, they are. So they are fond of that system,
and it's a great system. I'm not saying anything, but when you're an airbender or a firebender, do you want to hypothetically talk about your powers a la Monster of the Week when we played that? Where you're kind of like, I think I can do this. Like, I'm going to kind of have a conversation. Or do you want to know that I've got a +3 bonus to this air attack that I throw out or this fire attack? And that Kickstarter, I'm not faulting it. It might be an amazing game, but I was rereading that and I'm like, I don't think this is the game that people realize that I don't think they realize what they're buying.
Yeah,
because
I'll let you know because I Kickstarted.
Knowing, yeah, so I'm very curious. I am very curious, but like it. Powered by the Apocalypse and Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'm like, I don't think that's what we wanted. Like, I want to know exactly that I can do this fire maneuver, and I can combine it with my friend's wind maneuver to do something cool, because I think that's how a lot of the fandom thinks. And a Powered by the Apocalypse system is going to be like, I don't know, kind of...
It's done by moves, and the moves are worded generically, so you can kind of theme them the way you want. One of my favorite games, Masks: A New Generation, is a Powered by the Apocalypse, but adjusted. And so when you're looking at the powers that your teenage superhero has, you're right. They're not as defined as, okay, I get eye beams that do +2 damage, I get a super strong punch, and I get a Misty Step that lets me move on a bonus action to 30 feet or something. Yeah. It's like they are not expecting you to play a miniature moving tactical game, so they don't have miniature moving tactical abilities that you gain as you go from levels 1 to 20, like you do at D&D. And they try to make it more like you're playing a comic book. So it's more about talking about the cell of the frame of what's happening,
right?
And you deciding a little bit more about what your power looks like, and then you just kind of make it up. But you are right. There's something in there. Like when we played Monsters of the Week, the player doesn't really know what's okay. Is it okay for me to say I shoot flame out of my hand and it blows up the entire world, or is it okay for me to say I shoot flame out of my hand and all it does is burn a door down? Does it burn the door down? Does it burn the whole house down? Does it burn 7 states down in a single line? Like, how powerful? When you're playing those Powered by the Apocalypse games, you're not quite sure the extent of your power. Whereas in D&D, you know exactly what a sword hit's going to do. You know exactly how hard an arrow is going to hit. You know exactly how hard the fireball is going to hit. There's a range in there. You roll your dice and you're done. It's not like it blows the whole mountain up when I throw a fireball out. It only does this thing. So I think you're right. I think if you're looking for tactical and you want miniature moving, we're measuring and we're having fun in a nice big combat, that craziness is happening, that you want a little bit more defined what's happening and how can I do it, versus other systems which have really kind of abstracted that into the more what they call RP kind of versions, role-playing games, where everybody's more into the discussions and the interactions than they are punching each other in the face or shooting off a fireball or using my ice beam. Because like if we're going to play an X-Men game, I want tactical, full-on, I'm fighting Sentinels. I want to be able to say what
that's how I would want,
can or can't do. Yeah. So
but if I
want a system that's for that.
Yeah, but if I'm playing X-Files, the game, right. I don't want that. Then
I don't need that. Yeah, I need interaction. I need talk, discussion, conversation.
Coming all the way back to the very beginning, which is kind of why I wanted to spawn this. Is there a universal system? Because and I'm thinking about it in a very large abstract way, where it's like, on paper, yes, we have universal systems, but do I want to play an X-Men game using Cypher, I probably do want to play an X-Men game, but like that's not anyway. But I want to play an X-Men game with Powered by the Apocalypse, or do I want to play an X-Files game using D&D 5th edition?
Yeah, which is all about punching somebody.
Yeah, and so it's like I don't know if there is now that and maybe we should reevaluate our RPGs as this is a system that you can use that has a lot of heavy narrative elements. You're going to tell a story. It's going to be really cool. And then this is in the middle. And then this is like a very tactical kind of rough and tumble game. So basically you are like, if you want to play superheroes, like this is a good one. If you want to play a comic book adventure where maybe two of you are Superman, but one of you is like, I don't know, Jimmy from the Daily Bugle or whatever.
Right.
Powered by the Apocalypse works really well because, yeah, Superman is more powerful than, Jimmy, but Jimmy has abilities within that system that Superman doesn't have. So,
yeah, that's a good analogy. And you're right. Maybe that's the elusive why they've never been able to create
make one that we're like
can't be created,
where everyone is kind of like, yeah, I don't know if it can,
Yeah.
So
or can you finally build a system that covers all? It's so big and it's so modular and it's so malleable that it can do cinematic games, it can do tactical based games, it can do theater of the mind games, it can do live action role play games where people get costumes and they go out to a campground and they throw beanbags at each. Could the system cover the whole gambit of all that style of gaming? A board game. You could go full-on board game where you're on rails and things. These rules handle it all, And I don't know. Maybe it can.
I'm really curious about this, and I've joined a board game Facebook group that someone in our Discord pointed me towards, and it's been really fun to see the interactions and chatting between people about game design in general. And that's what kind of spawned this idea for me, because I'm like, there's a lot of things that are like, you can play anything with this. And I'm like, but is it fun? Is it fun?
Right.
I don't know.
You could.
I don't. Yeah, it's one of those things like, I mean, I could, I don't know. I can eat a lot of asparagus, but will I like it? I don't know.
The thing I miss in a lot of other games, even though I love Powered by the Apocalypse and Cypher and all these other games, the one thing I love about D&D games and the characters is that it's so defined what you get level to level to level. And there's so many levels that you're always looking forward to the next thing you might get or the way you might build your character. Whereas it seems like in a lot of other games, you don't get those many options. You don't get as many of those upgrades. It's not as defined a map of here's feats I could pick or here's cool abilities I could pick. It's just like they abstract it out because you're just going to be making up what your powers are anyways, when you go to do it. That's not the focus of the game. So yeah, I think it's really hard. I would love to see a huge discussion in Discord for those who think there are universal systems out there that can handle it, and which one is your favorite universal system. And for those who think there's no way a universal system could ever work, it'll never be able to do it, then what is your favorite niche system that you love so much that no universal system's ever going to be able to cover? Each side of it really given there, what's my favorite? And here's my example of why it's my favorite. I'd love to see that, because maybe there's some games on there I haven't even played, and I could go out and say, oh, I haven't played that one. Like I was already watching some of the chat, and people are talking about Alternity. I don't think I played, and I've seen some names of other games in there I haven't even touched.
GURPS came up in the YouTube chat, and I was like, I haven't read GURPS, but like that is the generic universal role-playing game. I think that's what it stands for, so I should probably check it out.
Yeah.
So real quick, I mean, this is kind of funny, but like, what is your favorite space sci-fi, and I'll say like sci-fi fantasy setting? Like, do you have one where and this could be a movie, a book that you're like, man, I would love to play a game in that? Aliens?
Yeah, it's gotta be Aliens.
All right, and so with Aliens, what system do you want to play Aliens with?
That one.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Everybody has said this is really good. All the reading I've done with it has been really good. I love Aliens and Colonial Marines and Space Marines kind of stuff. I will say the close runner-up for me, sci-fi wise, is Warhammer 40K. I love how deep that universe is. I love all the lore. I love the miniatures and the models and all the stuff that goes with it. I love it a lot, but Aliens is still, my one in my heart. Or God, Starship Troopers. I gotta throw that in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Starship Troopers feels the campy aliens.
It's very alien. Yeah, it's very Space Marine like. So that system is really, really, really good. And I don't know if you need a D&D system with a colonial marines or your colonists or your scientists or you're part of a mining.
I would play it powered by the apocalypse. Or I think Cypher would
work
really well for that too.
Just guns and grenades at that point.
Yeah,
so.
And I haven't read Alien, but I'm sure that system does it justice. So.
If I didn't do this system, and you said this one didn't exist,
yeah, let's say what universal system would you use? Kind of a thing.
Universal.
Or I don't know what system. Well,
Delta Green. Yeah, Delta Green is a system that I've liked when there are guns and rocket launchers and grenades kind of involved. I've liked that game and that system. So for me, Delta Green, but playing an Aliens campaign would be super, super fun. I could see you doing it in Cypher. I'm sure somebody could do it in a D20 system. I mean, I don't know why you couldn't at that point. You just you'd have to stat out what is a gun, what is a machine gun, what is a pistol, what is a heavy machine gun in 5e. How would you designate what the differences are between, an MP5 and a M60 machine gun?
The White Wolf system would be kind of cool for an alien Space Marine thing because you could have like the scientist who does this and
you could still, and they could be part of different corporations. Yep. They could still have different clans in a way, but you're doing it in a different way. Oh, I could see that.
That'd be kind of fun. What about fantasy? I mean,
my favorite fantasy setting.
Do you have because you read a lot of books and stuff, and a lot of and you enjoy fantasy. Do you have a favorite fantasy setting that you haven't been able to play it?
Yeah, everything would have been Forgotten Realms for a very, very long time, until I would say pretty recently, and now I want to play more of some of these animations where they are showing you fantasy games, but they're being played through virtual reality. So the players are sitting at home, they put their virtual reality sets, they get fully immersed, and they're playing, Sword Art Online kind of style. They're going to a fantasy world and they're playing their class and they're meeting up with their friends and things are happening. They're making really cool worlds and I love it so much. I like that idea of that kind of a fantasy setting. So I've kind of moved away from the Forgotten Realms and started to move more into this more anime style of fantasy games like Sword Art Online. Should You Look for a Girlfriend in a Dungeon? Those ones are all like really fun fantasy worlds that I think are much more cooler. I'm starting to get much more interested in.
Okay, very cool. And then with that, what kind of a setting do you think you'd use for it? Or not a 5e. Setting, a system, yeah?
I think 5e. Okay. I think I would still stick with it because it would let me build the characters out. It would let me build what you got when you went from level 1 to level 2. You're definitely gaining experience. It's definitely still tactical. You're definitely going to a dungeon to get stuff and come out with loot. It's still a loot. I want it to still be Diablo, loot explosion kind of game. I want it to be lots of cool magical items, and I wanted to have magical items to have more emphasis than they do in D&D 5e. Whereas maybe more of your powers are coming from the magic item stuff that you're getting and less from, at level 2 I get this new ability, at level 4 I get this new ability, and at level 6 I get this new ability. Maybe it's because I picked up this cool Sword of the Waves, I can now do this wave attack.
Yeah.
And I picked up this, the gauntlets of whatever, and now I can do this cool punch the ground earthquake attack or something,
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I love systems like that. Knave is kind of like that, where you pick up this weapon and now it's like you're technically a fighter, but it's because you have this sword, and the other person picked up a book, so they have magic, but it's all based on their equipment, And
see, there's one. Cool. Tenra Bansho Zero, Quintus is saying, if you like anime style gaming, check that one out. So that must be an RPG out there. So very cool. I like that one. Okay. What about? I haven't heard your sci-fi or your fantasy. What's your big?
Yeah, so it's funny, the Star Trek Star Wars debate is always a big one with people, and I love both of those.
Mandalorian.
But I really like Star Trek, and I always have, and it's one of my favorites. And I would love to have me be the game master, and everyone at the table be the crew. And I have those ready room meetings where we're talking about like, well, what do we do? Like I want that experience. And Modifius's 2D20 system is very good for that. But I also think that you could do that really well with Powered by the Apocalypse, because it's less on combat and more like, how do we solve this tactical mission kind of a thing? Or like, oh no, we have a holodeck problem or something. And so I would really like to play a Star Trek game like that.
God, can I sign up for Jordan's Star Trek campaign right now?
We should do
I
that.
Put my name on the list. Oh my God, that'd be so good.
And then as far as a fantasy setting, I love the Earthsea books. A Wizard from Earthsea.
Yeah.
And those had a very interesting view of magic, and so it wouldn't necessarily be spell slots. And I don't know what I would use for that. Because I think I would want everyone to be a wizard or some kind of magical creature, but maybe
modular
not.
D6 system, maybe?
Yeah, maybe modular D6. I'm working on it. We'll see. But yeah, ironically, though, I think modular D6 would be better for a tactical combat thing, which is kind of what we've been playing around more with. And the idea of building your character up through levels as opposed to abstract things like I found a weapon that makes me powerful, or like this affected me in the story, so the logical choice is for me to kind of take this, and you don't really have hit points, and I think modular D6 is going to be more of the tactical fighting. But
yeah, I hear you.
Anyway, something I've been thinking a lot about, there's so many cool like settings out there to play in that but I really think it's interesting that a universal system, we can call it universal, but it's not necessarily going to scratch that itch for every type of game. So
right.
But anyway, we got 10 minutes left. Let's talk about D&D, because that's what we're here. And I love hearing about your Dungeon of the Mad Mage running around. So what's going on in Dungeon of the Mad Mage?
Well, we fought some cool super powerful UNT, but I'm forgetting the type. Maybe they're like the abomination style of them, so they're much more pumped up UNT. And if you remember, there's one in there that's called an anathema, which is the one that has all the snake heads and was super powerful.
That's a really fun monster.
And we did a super tactical teardown of this thing. Our team was like SEAL Team 6. When we went into this room, it was like, block the big guy off with a force wall, throw up a darkness spell. It can't see to cast now. It can't get to our things. We kill off its minions. We bring the force wall down right after its turn is over. We start hammering it with everything we've got. It was like, it was like we planned it out in a video game kind of thing. So Danimal, our dungeon master from Down Under, our Australian dungeon master, he commended us on being super tactical and being able to just kind of hammer through that without ever really being in danger of it, which was cool. But then we got into a fight with some Nagas, and then even we're about to just come up out of the ground a bone Naga, and I have never got to fight a bone Naga. And the Naga, whoa, you should have seen some of the poison rolls this thing was throwing out. It was like 30, 40, 50 points of poison, and we were all like, whoa, we got a dwarf who didn't care about it, but the rest of us are like, I'm in trouble if I get hit by that.
There's lots of so poison is like one of those things where a lot of D&D players and meta players are just like, oh, that's the most resisted damage type. So like, I don't want to take poison damage when I'm attacking monsters and stuff. But that being said, I think it's overlooked a lot, because so many people are like, oh, I've got resistance or I've got this. And then you all of a sudden it's like the dwarf is the only one that's doing well against this thing because of all the poison damage. And the poison condition, very spooky. If you're poisoned for an hour, that's kind of spooky. So
yeah, and some of them are different, because some of them will paralyze you. Some of them will restrain you. Some of them will turn you catatonic. Some of them are just, it wears off after a while. It's just damage or something. So you're never quite sure what type of poison is going to hit you, and then what extra effect it might have on different ones. Like the drow poison from their crossbows can be different from the poison you get when maybe an anathema bites you or something. So it's always a little scary. And sometimes I think people take characters that have poison resistance to try to avoid that whole problem in the first place. I was thinking about when we were doing Chult, I knew we were going to be in a jungle. I knew there's going to be poison damage everywhere. We're going to see it all the time. So one of the characters I thought about doing was a UNT sorcerer. I thought, aha, I'll kind of game the system. But I finally said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different, and didn't do it. But I think some people do that. So that's been really fun. A Bone Naga, I think, is going to be super cool. And then I think once we fight this, we're close to going down to the next level. And we did find a doorway, because there's lots of doorways in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, that you can go through and take you to different places. And we were about to go through one, and we got the voice in our heads that says, you do not want to do that. You are not ready for that. And we all backed up. And we're like, okay, we're going to take that hint. We're going to slow roll our way down in there, because apparently we were about to just throw ourselves into the deep end. And we almost got trashed there. But apparently I think that's part of the campaign, that there's somebody watching out for you that we don't know yet.
Really?
In Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
I wonder if it's Halaster. And okay, so I haven't read Dungeon of the Mad Mage, so yeah.
So we're starting to get down deeper. I think we're going to start learning about his apprentices. We're going to start learning about, and we're getting to fight big monsters that we've never got to fight before. I've never got to fight a Bone Naga. I never fought an Anathema.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to fight these cool creatures that are in the monster manuals and the Volos and all this stuff, that are those CR7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, 12s. We've never got to fight those kinds of creatures before, because our campaigns go 1 to 5 and then we're done, and we think about whatever the next campaign is, kind of thing. So I'm super interested. I can't see where we go. We're back and playing on Tuesday nights. It's a really, really fun game and a group of characters, and I love my Eric Kokra Arcane Archer. Yeah. I never thought he was going to be as cool as he is.
That's really fun.
It was like, there's this moment, and I know I'm taking up your time to talk about.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
There's this moment where I've always been the archer, and I'm firing, and I hit like a hammer, like a truck from behind, and I just thought there's this cool image of pushing this big abomination UNT, and there's an altar, and we're about 10 to 15 feet, and I've got gauntlets of ogre power, and I'm thinking, could I grapple him? And then what I want to do is I want to slam him into the altar and hold him and pin him there. And the way I want to get a little bit of advantage or a bonus, because I'm going to have my wings start to fly out and then start giving me push to push this thing across the ground and into the altar. And Danimal, my dungeon master, is like, yeah, I love the whole image of that. Let's roll some dice. He's just like, let's do that immediately. And he's like, roll this dice. And I get the grapple. I beat the grapple. And then and this thing is trying to not let me push it, but the wings are flapping, and I just slam it in. And I hold it for like 3 turns. I'm dodging. I'm just using the dodge action. I'm doing nothing else, but I'm holding it there with my gauntlets. And it was just such a cool visual image to think of that. And that's what, the players were talking about, after the session's over, the cool move, and being able to describe that cinematically, how it worked. And it was just fun. It was a really fun. That's the piece that keeps you coming back every Tuesday night, is that you're going to be able to describe your character doing something really cool that should be a comic book cell, or should be a 5-minute or a 5-second video or animation, or it should be in a movie. You're just like, this is such a cool moment.
No, I always love it when I leave the table and I'm like, that's a painting in my head.
Yes.
Like I want to make that right now. Like, I'm not that good of an artist, but I can see it so well. Like, it's just cool. Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. And I was just saying, it's the big eagle head screeching in the face of the creature. Wings are flying out. The gauntlets, because I'm using them, start to glow, because it's using the magic to give me the strength of the ogre to push, and it's like the scrapes on the floor where the claws of the creature is trying not to let it happen. Oh my God. I was just so
awesome.
Good.
I love it.
But what about Jordan's games? I'm sure you had some cool epic moments.
Yeah, no. So I played my Eberron game on Friday nights over on Kugo the Mighty's channel / The Mighty Dungeon. He's got another YouTube channel, and that's where most of his D&D content is. And I think we were streaming on the Mighty Dungeon Twitch last night. But that's a lot of fun. I've missed a couple episodes because of camping and other things, so I feel bad. People are just like, where the hell did you go? And we made up a whole thing where I've like been mysteriously aloof and stuff. But really good group of players that are new to D&D and genuinely are just amazed by it. And I love playing with people like that, because they're just like, wait, what? And there's a couple times where they'll ask something and Google will be like, "This is D&D. You can do whatever you want." Like, what? And they have this like, "Oh yeah, I'm not in a video game" kind of moment. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I ran my modular D6 playtest last Saturday, and we're actually going to play again tomorrow. Nice. Same group of people. And if you've read some of the rules, which are on, they might just be on my Patreon, actually. I don't know if I shared them publicly. But you XP as a currency, and you spend it to buy modules that level you up and make you cooler. And so it's like, I want to be good with like swords, so you buy that sword module or something. Or I want to be good with magic, and you buy that. But it's fun because if you get experience points by showing up to play, you get one. By staying the whole time, you get another one. And then completing something in-game, you get a third one. So you're averaging about, excuse me, you're averaging about 3 to 4 experience a night. And so my players will be level 2 tomorrow, and we're going to talk about leveling up and what does that mean. But it's, I wanted to talk about playtesting is interesting because one of my players took this jumping module that lets him triple his jump distance. And I was like, oh, okay. And I wrote that, but I didn't really think about it. And he's like,
I didn't think that out.
Well, he's like, well, so how far can I jump with that? And I'm like, and so we had to think about it. And because the way he interpreted it is that he would be able to jump 90 feet. And I'm like, oh, no. Like, I can't, no, that is not happening. So I went back and I like really thought about it, and I rewrote a bunch of like jumping rules. And so then I had to do, triple is even too much for that. So then I had to take it down to double instead of triple. But that's the reason you playtest. And I think it's been a lot of fun to have those discussions and figure it out. So yeah. And then I'm going to make a Dungeon Crawl Classics Lankmar video on the second channel. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm coming out. I'm going to record that today, I think. And then I'm hitting 100K soon. Yes, what do you guys want to do? Should like I run Lucian through a Star Trek game and be the complete antithesis of my Forgotten Realms channel?
I'm ready to be an ensign.
Oh my gosh, Ensign Lucian.
Yes.
I love it. But yeah, I got to do something. It's gonna be really cool. We got a lot of stuff coming up. So that's about it for me. But I'm playing a lot of games. I'm excited. Played last night. Might play tonight. Definitely running a game tomorrow. And I've forgotten how much I love running games. Like I've been playing a lot lately.
Playing a lot. Yeah. We've been talking about this lately.
But I was like, man, I want to run a game. So I'm actually running them through an old school essential adventure, and I'm converting the monsters as I need to. So they're exploring a cave looking for a water dragon. It's very base minimal, but like my players love to explore. I have been able to draw maps on my cool new board on my table with the plexiglass. So I've been drawing all the maps, and they love it. They each chose a miniature the other day. Or the first time we played. So they have not custom, but they have miniatures for their characters, and they're very excited. So yeah. Anyway,
very cool. That's
our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for hanging out, sharing, commenting, subscribing, staying wonderful and nice in the chat is really awesome too, because we had quite the heated discussion between some people. Well, I shouldn't say heated, but anyway, we will be back next week with another episode. We'll talk more about maybe these systems. Maybe we'll have some more information. Who knows? Yeah. September is right around the corner, which we'll have lots of awesome stuff to talk about. What's your favorite Universal system? And what do you play it with? Let us know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious as I've been researching a lot of
If there's a good one I don't know about, I want to know about.
Yeah, so. Because I... Even talking today, I was all ready to talk about the Uni system and Cortex, and then Lucian throw me a curveball with Cypher, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. You could do a lot of cool stuff with Cypher. So
that's right.
But yeah, we will be back next week. So I'll see you guys all as I find my button to transition. Here we go. I'll see you guys all next week. Thank you again for watching, and have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.